Episode 48, the Playaz Club podcast. Simplicity is the topic. Is it even possible to convey such depth with a simple approach? We'll talk about it today. But first, Lex, how are you feeling?
Feeling like the simple life is the way to go, brother.
As always. What do you think it means to create something in a simple approach in art?
It's, in an odd way, it's complexity still.
Mm-hmm.
The term simple approach kind of makes it seem like it's just basic. But I feel like approaching something in a simple manner, it really gives you clarity as to what is all there at your disposal, pretty much.
I see a simple approach as something to easily understand. Something that someone can easily approach and know what it's trying to say or what it's trying to convey. How do you find the balance between a simple approach and the ability to convey depth? Meaning, like, it's easy to understand, but you also want it to go a layer deeper.
Still have those complex emotions instilled into it.
Exactly.
I find it easier if I don't really think about
The depth.
the depth part necessarily, or that it needs to be instilled into it. I feel like taking the simple approach in that way, it puts it into perspective that you just need to create it. You know, you don't have to necessarily force yourself to convey that depth within it. It'll just naturally come if you just let it flow freely.
So you feel there's no need to convey depth?
There is a need, but I don't feel that that should be your
Primary.
main focus if you are taking the simpler approach to making that.
Yeah, I think taking the simple approach is just about cutting away things that make it more clear and not overthink it.
Yeah.
Make it more clear.
So how do you come to a point where you don't become complacent within the simple approach to art?
By not making your simple approach vague. I think misconception can be that simplistic is vague and it's too easy to do.
Yeah.
And I think whenever you do take the simple approach, it makes it a lot easier to miss the mark. To not get across what you're trying to, because there is so less elements into the project. Whenever you're taking elements away, how do you find that improves the project?
Takes away all the static, pretty much all the things that you would overthink while creating this painting or whatever you're making, you know, taking the simple approach to. I feel like it really deducts all those. It
deducts in what way?
Puts it into perspective as to what your main focus is. Yes, your focus at some point is going to be to add detail, but at this point, it doesn't really matter. You need to focus on what the main goal is or the main message of this is.
What you're trying to complete.
Yeah, as opposed to having that perfectionism view placed on it. As to it has to be this, you know, at this moment. I feel like you should just let it gradually get there.
I find the most challenging thing to be not being so vague, like you said, and being able to instill that theme into the art still, but also being able to just have it what it is. Meaning that there's so much that you can add to it, and it kind of changes the narrative of what it is.
It changes the project.
Like entirely.
We said, yeah. It shifts it. It's a whole different way of revision at that point.
Yeah, totally twists it. What do you think some of the biggest challenges are whenever you're trying to create something simply?
Create something simply. That aspect of wanting to add the detail. When you're taking a simple approach, your main focus, like I said, shouldn't be that detail. But if you're so accustomed to having, how would you say, approach that does kind of add complexity in that way of like, okay, well, we got to focus on the finer things as well as the bigger picture, you know. So I would say that's one of my challenges is not adding that detail, at least not in that moment.
Mm.
If you're taking a simple approach, you can add detail. Just do it at the end.
Because I think at the end you're more sparingly with it.
Yeah. At the beginning, if you start to add detail, you're a little too critical when it comes to
But
it.
don't you think that that could come across as boring?
To some people,
Simple
yeah,
approach?
because you're not adding detail. You don't care about this, you
Because I
know.
think what makes it simple is that it's been done before. Someone has
Yes.
perfected that craft
Mhm.
and it's able easily learned. So that's what makes it simple. But also at the same time, the classics are why it's popular.
Exactly. It's also seen as in the sense of it took you 30 minutes to make this. Doesn't make sense.
Hmm.
You didn't really care about it.
Does
You just
it
threw it together.
does it make it better than if it was made in a couple hours?
That's the thing about it. Yeah,
Which art is better?
is it considered more boring than this one because they took 3 hours to make that one,
Hmm.
as opposed to you just made this. You didn't have any thought behind it. That's what people will think about if you say, "Well, I just kept it simple." They say, "Well, you didn't have any thought put like behind
It's
it."
seen as lazy, like yeah.
Yes, you're just trying to put out something. You don't necessarily know what you put out or why you put it out, but lo and behold, it does have meaning to it. It's just, damn, I just let it flow.
Hmm.
That's all it is.
Just letting it flow. So do you think the simple approach is something that you think about before, or it's just something that naturally going into it's just the project becomes that the painting becomes just a tree?
It, I feel like it becomes that as you're going. I feel like you know which approach you're supposed to take as you start to make your project.
Hmm.
As you
It takes
know,
shape.
yeah, as what's getting added to it, okay, well, I'm supposed to think this all out, articulate every little detail. Or you're just like, oh, this is going to be hella easy. Let me just do this, 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 this. And then it'll just be what it is.
Just break it down and let it be what it's going to be.
But how do you feel about that? Do you feel that most of the time, you take the simple approach or you kind of make it complex in the way that you approach your project?
I think I try to simplify it. I try to
Mm-hmm.
take complex ideas and try to simplify them as much as possible just so I'm able to understand them,
Yeah.
like how to draw or how to paint or something. I think it's just the simplest things of it, and then building upon that is what makes simplicity, I think, a fundamental of learning. Is because whenever
Mm-hmm.
you're able to break it down easily and understand it, I think that's whenever you're able to build upon that and get into the more complexities of it and try to change it or innovate it in some way. Make a new technique that's already been done
Yeah.
just because you've been able to perfect the simple things.
I mean, I agree with it. Yeah. How do you, how would I put this? How do you not how do you not like measure your fulfillment when it comes to the simple approach or the complex approach? Do you feel that you get the same level of fulfillment either way at the end of the project?
Do I get the same amount of fulfillment from a complex approach as to a simple approach?
Yeah. Do you feel that there's a big difference at the end?
I feel like
Anyways?
there's a lot of difference in just in the way that I think there's a lot less into the project, a lot
Mm-hmm.
less invested, or not less invested, but a lot less to be judged.
Yeah.
But I think that you get the same amount of fulfillment from each, but I think they're a bit different. Just in the way that the complex one is, I don't know, maybe they're the same because I feel like from complexity, it has to be built upon simplicity.
That's kind of where you start is the basic.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
simple, you gotta have a first paint,
Yeah.
first
Have a
color.
first draft, first coat, any of that. Yeah, it starts
And
somewhere.
and only then can it become complex once it's built upon. So how do you feel about that? Are you able to build complexity without simplicity?
No, I feel like simplicity is like a gateway to complexity.
Mm.
Because yeah, you do have to start somewhere. And your basic form of your project is not going to be complex right off the bat. It
No.
works its way to that.
I think even if you're a professional in that way, I think you still have to start at the beginning.
Yes, you'll take up things that you did when you first started your craft or learning your craft. You'll just innate boom, there it is, and then it'll get you the ball rolling into the territory that you're usually in. You know, your skill level at this time. And
It measures up in between the two.
But the fulfillment part, I kind of feel like it's the same type of fulfillment either way at the end. Of course, it may be different during your process because complexity, you get a lot more fulfillment from that, at least for me, because you're solving complex ideas. You're just breaking through.
Yeah, you feel a lot more unique, I guess, in that way.
But at the end, I mean, you still feel that same fulfillment as to I got across what I wanted to get across. I made what I wanted to make, you know?
Had that freedom of expression.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, shit, let us know in the comments if there's any difference that you could see between taking the simple approach and the complex approach, and do you get the same fulfillment from either approach?
So true. How do you think that plays into collaborations? Is to simplifying everyone's roles, simplifying what the project is?
It's a tricky thing in collaborations. Because say you do have a person that works well under complex approaches, that's just pretty much their creative process. That's all it is. But then you can have everybody else is in accordance that we're taking the simple approach to this. We're not going to overthink it. We're not going to do all this and that. So it could cause like discourse, you know, like why does he get to stray off and do his own thing when we all said we're going to take the simple approach? He's still adding shit that possibly we don't need, you know?
Overcomplicates.
But at the same time, he could
add depth.
Yeah, he could add that because he's thinking about things y'all aren't thinking of because y'all are all taking this same approach. So I guess it just depends if they're all on the same page and if everybody's okay with that. If it's different, if everybody's okay with us four are taking the simple approach, he's over here, he's working out all the finer details and all that. He's looking from a different perspective. But if you have them constantly butting heads and saying we're working on two different projects, what are you doing? Then it's not going to work. But as for mediating, I don't mean to cut you off, but like mediating like everybody's role within that, I guess that a sign of a good leader that you say, well, that's his approach. I'm just going to let him work like he usually does, man. He always shows up. He always gets this done.
That's what I was going to say. Is it just comparing styles, see who compares the best? Because I feel as though you can get the same message across with few words, like few colors. I think it's the same amount of things with as if it was a well-written letter.
Yeah.
So I think it's just about finding who's best at what and just as a leader, applying them to that role.
Finding their strengths,
finding where they're best able to shine for the project and together.
Yeah. And even divide it, you know, that, okay, we are going to make it into this as a whole. He has all the complex ideas. He takes care of, quote unquote, all the big stuff when it comes to this project, because that's what he's focused on. And then you just have this group over here that's just simplifying it all and it's just saying, oh, we're just putting this out there, you know?
Yeah.
He can fine tune it. If we don't like it, we don't like it.
Yeah.
Take it out.
I think the two need to balance each other.
Yeah. I feel like you kind of do need to have that dynamic.
A simple approach and a more complex approach.
It would be in kind of hindsight I guess you would say, is, everybody says, well, no, the whole group needs to be in accordance, man,
Mm.
because, like, what are y'all doing as a group if nobody else is doing the same thing as everybody else?
Mm.
Why is one straining?
Yeah, I think someone to tell you that you're standing too close to the elephant.
Yeah. But, I mean, I guess it's just in your rhythm of how you lead the group. Like we said, it's how you operate it. Are you gonna chastise him because he is doing different than everybody else?
Makes music differently.
Pisses
Yeah.
him off and then he leaves instead of working with you guys? Or are you gonna say, well, damn, okay, that's your approach and stuff like that. Let's see how it merges with everybody else.
Hmm. So, do you think it's even possible to display complex ideas with a
Within it.
simple approach?
Damn, because it's kind of the paradox of what we almost talked about a while ago. Is it complex? Because
Or
you
is it
started out
simple?
as simple. They're both simple,
Hmm.
but this one just got worked on a little more, focused on the little things a little more. You know
I guess only time adds depth.
that too.
Only your work can add depth to it.
Yes, it's not the time that you put into it.
It's the
Like,
effort.
yeah, it's the emotion behind it. What you expressed during that time is
Hmm.
what matters.
Effort can make a simple idea complex.
Exactly. You could turn something into something bigger by just explaining it different than somebody else.
Having an understanding of that, or being able to make someone else understand that.
That too, yeah. It's Do you understand it well enough to get that out to somebody
I
else?
guess that is the bridge of simplistic and complexities is the ability to understand or make someone else understand it.
Could you teach it?
Do you know it
Not
well enough to teach it
Yeah, not in a classroom, but can you explain it to
or
somebody
apply it? Yeah.
that doesn't see what everybody else sees?
Doesn't understand the whole concept of what it is.
Yeah. Or are you just gonna sit there and be like, bro, you just need to understand it.
I just do
That's the
it. I
thing.
just do it this way. This way.
Nobody understands my art. Like, yeah.
I'm misunderstood. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the fine line between it. Yeah. That's a good example of putting it.
Hmm.
Complexity, you could be able to teach it to somebody.
Yeah. But looking at it through the lens of conflict, how does simplicity even play a role into that? Do you think making problems simple solves them?
To some degree, yeah.
Hmm. But it
But
could say that it's minimizing it. What
that's
would you say to that?
that's the thing too. Are you making it smaller? Or are you just like kind of how we said, are you just don't have care for it?
Hmm.
You just
Ignoring the
chopped
whole complexities of
it.
the problem.
Yeah, you're ignoring all your problems, basically.
Hmm.
You're saying, "Oh my
All
God, they're not
right, it
there,
will
dude.
resolve. It will resolve itself.
They're not there, bro." Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So there is a fine line between that. I feel like that's also where you become complacent. Is you minimize it instead of simplify it. You just become used to, well, it's not that big of a problem. It's not that big of a problem. But it is. Like, it's not going
It's
to
a
go
very
away.
complex problem. Yeah.
It's not going to go away just because you didn't consider it a big problem. Like, you need to put it off as no, it shouldn't affect me that much, but I should put some time and effort into chopping this all up and figuring it out in sections.
Finding the answer.
Yeah, because you still gotta answer that. You still gotta answer to all of your problems. So minimizing it is not gonna.
So how do you take that approach? Because I feel as though taking a simple approach to your problems, I think, is trying to make them that you're capable of overcoming them.
True. I mean, it's not something that's inherent as you
Mm-hmm.
start your journey.
Because you look up the mountain and it's like, damn, that's a big, it's a
Yes.
long climb, bro.
I have to walk all the way up there. Bro.
Yeah.
Do I have enough water? Did I bring too heavy of a damn bag, bro. Like, you know. So, but it's different viewing it from the bottom of the mountain and then viewing it from the top of the mountain. You'd be like, damn, I walked up this whole thing, man. I thought it was a lot bigger of a problem than it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then the smoke clears, and you see the other mountain that you gotta climb.
Part two.
Yeah, it's even higher. Yeah.
That's so true.
But that's the thing too, is like that visualization is like you chop it up into pieces and say, well, I'm just gonna start walking. Then you get there and realize, well, damn, I walked up this whole mountain. I was complaining probably the whole way, but like I made it. My end goal, boom, that fulfillment kicked in. So now you have enough of a confidence in you,
a boost of motivation,
that when those clouds part, you see a bigger mountain and you're like, all right, I could do that one too.
Yeah, I think that gives you a sense that you're capable.
Yeah.
You're capable of climbing the mountain and
yes,
and getting it done.
And it also builds that capability. Yeah, it's not just the belief in it. It says, well, like, you know, at this point, I didn't bring enough water last time. Do we got this? Like, we could convert it while we're up here and shit like that, blah, blah, blah. Takes more. You learn and you get better at it, you know?
So true. But when you're at the top of the mountain, how do you think simplicity's affected your worldview?
That the simple approach to life, the majority of times, is the way to go.
What way?
Because if you overcomplicate it, say, in the sense of you look at everybody else's problems as your problems, life is complex. But if it's just like, hey, they got problems like I got problems.
A comparison.
You know, it's simple. It's just the way of life, you know, like. Because I feel like if you do kind of take it on as like, you know, their problems are huge, you know, what are we going to do? No. In some cases, they didn't even ask you to kind of help out, but you're like, what are we going to do? You know? So viewing all of that in that simpler way of seeing it, some people would say, though, that that's like borderline selfishness, though. Because you're only thinking about like yourself, and you're saying, well, like, that's life, bro. Like,
it's simple.
Okay, we all go through these problems. You know, like, again, you're minimizing their
simplifying
problems.
It.
You know, like, you're just saying, get over it. What are you doing? Complaining about it. But at the same time, I feel like that's acquired, too. You have to get to that point of view where you see that, hey, it's not as big as a problem as you see it. That mountain is not that big, bro.
I think that's the difference as to minimizing it and seeing it as to that it's conquerable as to you're able to get past it and move on.
And being able to explain that to somebody else to where they can understand that point of view. Not just minimizing it and saying, well, dude, get over your problems. I'm here dealing with mine. Just get over yours.
Yeah, dude,
you know?
That's a good point, man. I feel as though that to simplify it is to be able to be like, oh, this is something that I can handle.
Yeah.
Not to be like, oh, this is just another problem.
Yeah, it's just another problem we all go through, bro. It's like, okay, I found a way to solve it. Here's how you could solve yours in your situation, whatever's going on.
Yeah.
You could pass that on to somebody else.
Yeah. Having that worldview, I think, allows you to feel like you can learn anything. Like,
yes.
You could learn pretty much whatever because it's a process.
There's no limits to what you could achieve at that point. So how would you say you translate the complexity of your emotions into your art, but also striving to keep that simplistic approach the whole time?
I find it to be a difficult thing just because emotions are so complex.
Yes.
But I think trying to understand them and simplify them so much as to then build upon them. Because I think the emotion is just trying to capture the essence of it. What is the core of it? And then trying to understand it later.
Yeah.
I think that's whenever you can build complexities on it or try to understand it. But whenever you're trying to capture it in its essence, I think that's the point of it. Is trying to frame it for what it is rather than trying to understand it at that point. Because I think that's what makes it complex.
Damn. That's how did you reach a point? Because I have a problem with the vulnerability aspect.
I feel that.
Diving in more into that. Like I could put the basic emotions, but actually diving into it and articulating it, saying this is exactly what we're talking about in this emotion. That's where I get kind of stuck.
I feel that. I think I still have some difficulty with that as well. Is to really going deeper, a layer deeper into that.
Yeah, because it's real vague. Like
Mm.
I could get it there.
I could be like, I'm mad, but why
Yeah.
are you mad?
Explaining exactly why you're mad. Yeah,
You're
it's like
sad, but why are you sad? Yeah.
like, do you really want to know why? Like, yeah, that starts to kick in. Like, do people really want to know exactly why?
Hmm.
But I feel like that's something like you're kind of struggles as an artist. I feel like everybody goes through that. Do they
So
want to
like
hear
that.
that part? Do they just want to see that I'm sad, not necessarily know where that sadness comes from? So
True.
in that sense, would you see like simplicity as like a form of resistance in that way? Like it's almost
Oh.
too simple in the approach for you to kind of dive into those deep emotions or deeper message that you want to convey through your art.
That's a good point. I think it's easy for you to stay surface level with the simple approach.
Yeah.
It's very easy for you to not really add depth or learn why, though you have those complexities about you. But yeah, I think it can add to a simple vagueness about it. But I think it's about having intention whenever you have the simple approach, because I think without intention, it's just a scatter of ideas.
Yeah, it's just a culmination of a bunch of emotions as opposed to just one honed in.
Because I think it's just like with words, I think a few words can make such impact. But it's like, what are those words? What is the context of the words?
Yeah.
I think with the context of words, it allows you to really utilize the simple approach in that way. Because it's not necessarily that you have to over explain it, but with those words in the context that they're in, it's able to send what you want to have in your art.
That's a damn good answer.
How do you think simplicity shapes your identity? I mean,
simplicity shapes your identity.
Yeah, or has a role in that.
It gives you the freedom to look at your identity in its simple terms. Not say that pretty much. I convey deep emotion. I am like a world-renowned painter. Like
world
it's all that
class.
shit. But I feel like your simplicity when you're viewing your identity like that, it's just like I'm an artist, man. I'm just here to express myself
in some sort of way.
Whatever I'm feeling at the moment, the person that I am today, that's what I'm conveying right now. I'm not kind of stuck in the future as to what did I kind of want to force it to be. Like
what is this going to be in the future?
Yeah. Like I'm the cool guy, I only make this type of art. I only do this cuz I feel like we all go through that phase of do I need to be stuck to one certain niche?
I think especially when you get paid for a niche, it's kind of risky for you to break out of it because that's what kind of people know you for.
Plus, whatever company that's working with you is going to say you're changing things.
Yeah.
Why? We sold them this.
We got a winning formula here. Why do you want to change it?
Exactly.
Which is true. But at the same time, where's growth in that?
Where's it? Yeah. How many times are they going to buy into this person? Not necessarily just the art, but buy into that person and that identity for how many years or something you're trying to drag this out for?
The sequels. Endless sequels.
That's where like movies and stuff get stale. Or a spin-off gets a spin-off show. That's wild. Y'all need to stop. Y'all need to stop, bro.
Gets a spin-off. Yeah.
If they deserve it, okay, that's a whole different thing. But like, hey, everybody's getting their spin-off
every
show.
Side character got
That is crazy. Yeah.
That is crazy.
But that's where it becomes stale. oh, y'all love this, let's just force feed you everything about it,
It's just, yeah,
I feel like
create.
that's where it loses it, because you're in love with something because of the mystery behind it, like you
Hmm.
get given so much but you don't know what else is behind that,
You
like
get another layer. Yeah, I think it leaves it to your imagination.
yeah, it's like the movie The Thing. It's still a debate to this day. Who is the actual monster at the end? Is either one of them even the monster?
That's a good example
Like
because I think if they would have revealed that, that would have ruined the movie.
if one of them would have off the other, like just been a big old monster and like killed the other one, it would have been like, oh, okay, well, we got a definite thing it was him.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. But like it was made in the 80s and we're still talking about it to
Yeah,
this
this still
day.
has a relevancy, and they even remade it, huh?
Yeah, they remade it, they added on to it, that kind of made a little sense as to why this one started like this, like, but they didn't get it to a point where it's like, well, let's actually explain it. Let's make a movie where we start off on that end point
Mm-hmm.
and then we work past that, like, because I mean, I know it's been discussed before, probably.
Yeah, I think that's what depth is. Really, is just that conversation as to what do you think happened, or what do you think
Yes.
this painting means,
Mm-hmm.
or what do you think? What's your perspective on this subject?
That's the beauty of art, man. The discussion just keeps going.
And everyone has a different perspective on it.
Even if you hear the artist's perspective on what they actually put into this project and all that, and what they wanted to convey through that, what they wanted to say, someone is still going to be like, you're wrong, bro. And that's the person that made it. Like they're going to tell them, no, you're wrong.
Mm,
It means this, bro, because this is what I get from it.
yeah. How do you navigate that multifaceted landscape with just a simple approach? Like everything is so complex in a simple world.
It almost makes you kind of view it from that laziness perspective, because it's so deep of a topic, especially if
Hmm.
you're talking about human emotions. That could just go on for freaking miles, man. Like we don't even
And
know.
even then, it's not truly understood.
It's just our interpretations. We don't know why we cry necessarily, or like why we become sad, and that's what leads to that. Like
At the very basis of it.
we're just saying, oh, it's a basic functionality.
It's a human
Your
function.
brain sends these signals that says, hey, we feel a certain way. Your hormone balances are off. Like people will go into it and all this and that.
Science, yeah.
Someone else,
Spiritual. There's everyone, yeah.
someone else will say it's spiritual as opposed to scientific. Like it's hard, man, to get that across. That complex way of just the way we live in general, man, and explaining it through one little piece of art. If it's a
Mm.
painting or anything, 2.5 minute song, you have to enclose that within this. That's where I struggle too, is not being so vague about it, being a lot more vulnerable, and also being able to showcase that, like get it across.
Mm.
Like this is exactly what I wanted to get across, and you can relate to it at any point. Any point you meet this at, you could say, damn, I feel that.
Yeah.
How would you say you do with that? Are you kind of better in that? You could get your complex emotions as a human across? Because they are fucking multifaceted. You can be angry and sad at the same time.
Mm. Not understand it
Yeah. And be in the
and
middle. Like,
try to simplify that.
yeah.
Mm. So what was the question? How do I?
Like, how do you explain that? Say you are like sad, mad, and happy at the same time.
Mhm.
You're in a state of like, you're processing your anger, you're going through it because you're sad, and it's processing that way, and then you're getting happy at the same time because, okay, I'm gonna grow past this.
Mhm.
How do you get that across, but within your art, though? All of that feeling
Mhm.
tied into this.
I think really looking at it and seeing it for what it is and not really overcomplicating in the way that you kind of judge it in a way.
Mm-hmm.
You judge the emotion itself, that it's a negative thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think once you embrace the emotion, it's able to come out or able to be expressed. Because
Yeah,
if there's a sense of resistance, I think it'll
true.
never really come to fruition or won't come to light because there's a gatekeeper, which is you, you know?
Yeah, you're standing at the gate. It's like
You're gatekeeping your own emotion now.
I don't think they need to know how we feel on that subject. You know, of course, that's your ego coming in and say we're too cool for that shit. You know, people
Or
are
you
gonna
just,
judge
yeah,
us.
you just don't even want to deal with it at the moment.
That too, like getting those emotions across, like certain ones that you don't necessarily understand in that
They're
moment.
so complex in that way.
Yes, because like I want to get it across and I want to process it, these,
Mm-hmm.
heavy emotions, but I don't know how to explain that
Mm.
because I don't know what's coming on. Like,
I think being able to display those types of emotions or even make them visual, I think that's what makes it great art, or that's what makes it so visually pleasing, is because no one is really able to explain that,
mm-hmm.
explain it in words or in a picture. So whenever artists do capture that, I think that's what makes it really relatable or really relevant.
So would you say taking the simple approach it affects your risk taking within your art?
I think taking a simple approach with risks creatively, I think it just allows me to see what's essential in there because it won't exist without that piece. Every piece of it matters. And I think with that approach, simplicity, it makes it a lot more easier as to what will work in the project. Will be more fluid and more smooth in that way. How do you think that simplicity plays into your creative risk taking?
At times, it has made me weary about taking those risks, just because you're in a such a comfortable state. Everything has to be simple. Why am I gonna venture off, bro? Possibly ruin it
Mhm.
by taking the unnecessary risk within it. But at the same time, I feel like if I'm not willing to take that risk, I'm kind of holding it back from what it could be.
Doing a disservice to your work.
Yeah, by having that fear that, oh, I'm going to mess it up, If you do mess it up, okay, we'll just backtrack, bro.
Yeah.
Just take that off. It wasn't necessary. It's okay.
Not taking your mistake so personal.
Exactly. Because that is something that I feel that I hone in on. It's like, damn, man, you
Mistake.
ruined the project, right?
Mm. Yeah, whenever you embrace that, I think it allows you to expand your horizons.
I feel like in a way your projects are supposed to be ruined at some point, like whether it's during the process, afterwards, or you say, you know what, I'm not really resonating with this anymore. Let's
Maybe
tweak
you
it.
ruin it and you don't even realize it.
Yeah. You didn't ruin it, quote unquote. You just
But
made it
yeah,
better, but like, yeah, you did. You
that's something.
tarnished what it was before. You ruined it. But it's okay.
Mm. Damn. So true, bro. I guess that leads to our final question.
Hit me with it.
What do you think simplicity means? Oh, let me ask you this. How do you think embracing simplicity affects your view on not only yourself, but your art?
That viewing it from a different lens as to what I usually do, i.e., the complex lens, is pretty much gave me a perspective as to I shouldn't be so. How would you put it? Like in other words, I shouldn't hone in on all my faults or how we said you ruined it, bro. Like I hold it to myself. Next project you can't do what you did with this one. Yeah. So in art and in myself, the simple approach has made it that you don't have to necessarily put so much pressure on everything all the time, you know? some things do come out better when they're not applied with so much expectation or so much perfectionism tied to it. Diamonds are made from pressure, but like there's better things than diamonds though, right? In this world, like that's
it's a bar.
That's a bit controversial. Let me know if you don't think diamonds are
That's a bar.
are like the best thing in the world, or they're like the epitome of that is beauty in the world. But I feel like there are better things. Like
someone would say so.
Yeah, a diamond has more pressure put on to it than a rose does in growing, or is that opposite? Because
which one's more valuable?
The rose is constant. Diamond is just like in this moment, boom, and we press the shit, boom, it came out. Damn, but I'm straying. I'll talk about diamonds and roses.
We're going into a new episode.
But yeah, I mean that could be a whole different episode in itself. Yeah. So in that sense, it's just you can take the simple approach and it be the right approach in anything, whether it's
less is more.
Yeah, whether it's building yourself or building your art, building out, making your identity. Simple is sometimes the approach. It doesn't always have to be so complicated. Great point, brother. How do you feel about that?
I think that embracing simplicity allows you to see that life is a canvas, and you can either be afraid of that or embrace it and paint your own picture of what you wanted to say. Yeah. Write your own story of how you want it to sound, of your narrative and what you really want to be about, and really be artistic in that way, an expression of your own self and how you feel about it. So I think embracing simplicity is just embracing the foundation of what can really be complex.
That's true. Because it is daunting, but it's also refreshing to look at a blank canvas.
Mm-hmm. And build upon that.
Because it's new possibilities, but it's also the void. Like, oh my God, dude, I got to start this somehow.
Have some sort of something on it.
Yeah, there's a lot of purpose put onto it, and you don't even know where you're going to make it. It's just because it's a white blank canvas. Anything could go on it.
Yeah. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Yep. Well, I think that concludes episode 48 of the Playaz Club podcast, Simplicity. You got anything else, Alex, before we wrap it up?
Subscribe to the channel. Comment below. Let us know your thoughts on
the
Simplicity.
Playazclubpodcast.com.
Buy the merch.
Peace.
Peace.